Let's go through this case. The timeline is fascinating here. As I played in the last segment, Julian Assange, I asked him repeatedly on radio and television if Russia was involved. Absolutely not. Now, believe him or not, he's a guy that WikiLeaks has an 11-year history of never being proven wrong. And all these leaks, by the way, ended up being, a lot of them ended up being published in places like the New York Times. So I guess my question is, when you look at the timeline of this, and 12 days after he was killed, it shows up on WikiLeaks, what did you discover in terms of the contacts with WikiLeaks?
Right. Well, that's an excellent question. And let me clear that up right now, exactly what it was that I found. Now, I have never seen the emails myself directly. I haven't even seen the computer that Seth Rich used. Here's the problem with all of this. I don't even know where the computer is. I checked with the police department. They said they don't know where the computer is. And the FBI, they say they don't have the computer. Now, where did this information come from in terms of knowing or believing, I should say, that Seth Rich could have been in communications with WikiLeaks? There was a federal investigator that was involved on the inside of the case, a person that's very credible. And I'll tell you, let me just say this, Sean, I don't like to suggest things without saying the person's name, but I can't say the person's name because that person would be thrown under the bus, and I can't do that. But this person, we checked him out. We have to check him out. Very credible. He said he laid eyes on the computer and he laid eyes on the case file. And he came across very credible. When you look at that with the totality of everything else that I found in this case, it's very consistent for a person with my experience to begin to think, well, perhaps there were some email communications between Seth and WikiLeaks. Every time I talk with the police department, though, Sean, every time I talk to the police department about the WikiLeaks or the emails, it's automatically shut down. That discussion is automatically shut down.
Well, so we don't know for sure if the FBI or if the D.C. police have any access to these forensics, these emails? Right.
We don't know. We actually have a statement from the FBI telling us to contact the D.C. police. The D.C. police says contact the FBI. Now, which is it? If this is just a murder investigation, first of all, why would the FBI be involved? The only reason the FBI would be involved, just so that the viewers understand, is if this has some degree of national exposure, meaning because maybe it is related to the DNC, and we don't know that. We don't know that for sure. It could have been a botched robbery. But my point is this, Sean, and I've been investigating murders for a while. You have to look at every possibility. You can't just look at one thing and say, well, that has to be it.
Have you ever seen a lot of robberies, which is how they've been looking into this case, where the person has their wallet and their watch after they've been shot and killed in the back?
No, I haven't. Now, that's not to say that that could not happen. But here's the thing, and this is so important. There's been a $125,000 reward out for information pertaining to the death of Seth Rich. Not one person has come forward. Here's one other thing that's going to be startling, and I'm just going to say this right now. I reached out to the police department way back in March when the family first hired me, right, to get involved. I didn't hear anything from the police department for 2 to 3 days. Guess what I learned yesterday from the family of Seth Rich? The police department did not call me back because someone, a high-ranking official at the DNC, check this out, a high-ranking official at the DNC, when I called the police department, they got that information and called the Rich family wanting to know why was I snooping around.
Wouldn't that explain how is it possible that the DNC, when the FBI wanted to look at their computers, was able to bring in their own people? Or that the people that ended up getting immunity ended up being able to destroy their laptop computers? Is there any evidence that he might have been disgruntled at the treatment of Bernie Sanders and the unfairness, and that the fix was in to put Hillary in that position, and maybe had evidence of that?
No, I haven't seen any evidence in that regard. The only thing that I have been able to confirm is that there were some problems that Seth was having on his job at the DNC right before he was killed. And the person, listen to this, the person that called the father after I called the police to get information, that's the person that Seth was having problems with at the DNC. So, you know, connect the dots here. It's starting to all come together. So again, let me just really quickly say this. I don't know for sure. I don't know as a matter of fact if the emails went out to the WikiLeaks or anybody else, but it sure appears that way.
Democrat National Committee staffer was murdered on July 10th last year, not very far from his home. A DNC staffer. It is said that he had leaked something like 44,000 emails to WikiLeaks. Law enforcement sources are saying this. A federal investigator who reviewed an FBI forensic report detailing the contents of this staffer's name is Seth Rich, and they did a forensic exam of his computer within 96 hours after his murder, said Rich had made contact with WikiLeaks through a guy named Gavin McFadden, who is now room temperature. He passed away from cancer, but he was an American investigative reporter. Seth Rich ostensibly used him as the cutout or the go-between to get these 44,000 emails to WikiLeaks. The subject of the emails, apparently the story is that Seth Rich was outraged that DNC was rigging the primary for Hillary Clinton. Now, the local Washington police said, no, there's nothing to any of that. This is just a robbery gone bad. The problem with that is that his wallet was not stolen, nor his phone. So people, and the investigation stalled after that. No perp has been found. Robbery gone bad. Seth Rich died. So the family of Seth Rich went out there and hired their own investigator, a guy by the name of Rod Wheeler. He's a former detective in the Washington Police Department. He said, my investigation up to this point shows that there was some degree of email exchange between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks. I have seen and read the emails between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks. The federal investigator, this is not Wheeler, this is the federal investigator who told all this to Fox News, says, I've seen these emails confirming the family investigator's story, the connection to McFadden. He said the emails are in possession of the FBI while the stalled case, the murder and robbery gone bad, is in the hands of the Washington Police Department. So if you accept all of this at face value, what you would conclude here is that the FBI and thus Comey knew about this connection of this Democrat National Committee staffer had been murdered and his forwarding of 44,000 emails to WikiLeaks, and despite knowing all of that, still pushed the Russian story. Rod Wheeler, who is the family investigator, said, let's go to the sound. We've got this guy on sound bites. This story is written weirdly. I don't know there are quotes here, but no name attributed to it. So here's the first bite. This is last night on local Fox 5 in Washington. The correspondent is Marina Morocco, and she's speaking with Rod Wheeler, the investigator that Seth Rich's family hired to look into this, since they think the Washington police are stalling the investigation. And here's the first bite, the exchange between the two.
The police department nor the FBI has been forthcoming. They haven't been cooperating at all. I believe that the answer to solving his death lies on that computer, which I believe is either at the police department or either at the FBI. I've been told both.
But you have sources at the FBI saying that there is information
could
link Seth Rich to WikiLeaks?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's confirmed.
Wheeler is saying that there's a police source that's looked him dead in the eye. And FBI looked him dead in the eye and told him. But nobody's seen it, folks. Nobody has seen the laptop, and nobody's seen the 44,000 emails. It's just this guy saying so. Now, there's more, but I've got one more soundbite to go. Wheeler continues his answer.
I have a source inside the police department that has looked at me straight in the eye and said, Rod, we were told to stand down in this case, and I can't share any information with you. Now, that's highly unusual for a murder investigation, especially from a police department. Again, I don't think it comes from the chief's office, but I do believe there is a correlation between the mayor's office and the DNC.
All right, so the staffer, Seth Rich, is murdered back on July the 10th. And the reputedly was a computer with 44,000 emails that were transferred via intermediary to WikiLeaks. Nobody's seen the computer. Nobody's seen the emails. Family investigator says he's been told all this, that it exists. So everybody believes that. You'd have to believe that Comey, the FBI, knew it and ignored it for something else. What did they look at as something else? Well, let's not forget the official storyline of what happened. The official storyline is that the Russians hacked the DNC and found a way for all the data that they found to get to WikiLeaks. Seth Rich, nothing to do with this. You don't have any evidence, they're saying. The Russians did it. How do we know? We don't know from the FBI because the DNC did not allow the FBI to examine their computer network. Instead, the DNC hired an outfit called CrowdStrike, which is an outfit based in Ukraine. And the guy that runs CrowdStrike hates Vladimir Putin. It is CrowdStrike which says that they analyze a DNC computer and they found fingerprints from 2 different Russian government intelligence organizations. And from that, the FBI has accepted what CrowdStrike found and told them about. CrowdStrike also said that the Russians tried to get in and hack the RNC network, but failed. So the FBI has not even been considering the Seth Rich story. They have defaulted to believing the Russian angle and CrowdStrike's analysis. They are a forensic, private sector forensic computer outfit and network outfit. And the FBI just accepted what they said, and then we're off and running now with the Russians leaked the data from the DNC to WikiLeaks. This does not involve Podesta. Podesta's computer data, all those emails, is not part of this. Podesta fell victim to his own phishing attack. Well, not his, but a phishing attack on his own computer. The WikiLeaks, I don't know how they got it, but it's not part of the hack, and it's not related to Seth Rich. Seth Rich. Nobody is claiming Seth Rich also had Podesta's email, so there's 2 different things here. Now, all these highfalutin sources are saying, well, you don't have any evidence. Nobody's seen Seth Rich's laptop. Nobody's seen those 44,000 emails. Nobody knows about this intermediary we sent to WikiLeaks. Well, by the same token, nobody has seen the evidence of the Russian hack of the DNC either. We're just accepting that because the FBI, which is second only to H.R. McMaster in integrity, is telling us this. We haven't seen any evidence of anything about all. Did you realize that? Russian collusion? We haven't seen any evidence. Everybody's out saying, no question it happened, and we got a serious I haven't seen any evidence of it. No solid evidence of it. But everybody, Republicans and Democrats alike, are all like, oh, yeah, the Russians, oh, God, they're everywhere, man. They're trying to disrupt everything. Now, the Seth Rich is a fascinating angle, because if this actually turns out to be an internal leak from a disgruntled employee who happened to be mad at the way the DNC was rigging the game against Crazy Bernie, because that's what we learned from that leak. We learned that DNC had rigged the primary against Crazy Bernie with the stuff that's not from Podesta. That's from the DNC computer. So now there's 2 competing theories as to how WikiLeaks got it, either from Seth Rich, who was murdered. And by the way, he was murdered 2 weeks before all of this info shows up on WikiLeaks. So it's a good old-fashioned mystery. The FBI has chosen to accept whatever CrowdStrike told them and to believe this Seth Rich story is bohunk, and that the only thing we're paying attention to here is the Russian connection. Says that the family investigator, this is Rod Wheeler, says that there is tangible evidence on Rich's laptop that confirms he was communicating with WikiLeaks prior to his death. Just as there is evidence that he was sending these emails, he was communicating in addition to that. Now, if this is true, then this does great damage to the Russian theory, because there's still no tangible evidence the Russians were involved in hacking the DNC. Do you realize this? By the way, one minor correction is really my CrowdStrike is a U.S.-based computer outfit. They're founded by a Ukrainian who does hate Putin. The FBI did not conduct its own examination of the DNC computer system or its network. They let CrowdStrike do it. The DNC didn't want the FBI to do it. So they hired CrowdStrike, and whatever CrowdStrike said, the FBI is accepted. And the CrowdStrike are the only people who are saying, yeah, we found some Russian fingerprints in there. You realize there is no tangible evidence that the Russians were involved in hacking the DNC. It's just become something everybody accepts because so many people have been confirming, oh yeah, the Russians are hacking everybody. Russians colluding with Trump.